Chapter 529 Dark Abyss, 10,000 Corpses Pit, Part 1. There were two ways for the undead to evolve. First, using the presence of death to nurture themselves, like the fermentation of alcohol, allowing their strength to grow as time went by. Second, by merging with and devouring others. Combining the body parts of dead corpses to their own bodies with brute force would grant them the capabilities of the corpses when they were alive, to a certain degree. The corpse general had used Jazai's head to grant itself a human's vision. Since she had only died recently, her hatred still remained, hence she had come looking for the team as night arrived. Ash Garlic, staying still. None of them were effective against a corpse general consumed by strong hatred, as she could still recognize their faces within a day of her death. Come, stay with me. I want you all to come stay with me. The head on the corpse general screeched at them with terrifying hatred. The corpse general had the ability to command the undead. Following the scream, the zombies within a few hundred meters away obeyed its summon, sharing the same target as the corpse general. The zombies too began to scream. Their rotten legs that were initially dragged around like puppets suddenly received a strong burst of energy, turning them into the most savage beasts, which charged toward the humans and surrounded them. Countless black figures were running at them. The density of the undead in the area was high to begin with. The entire place trembled as the summoning took place. The undead had gone totally mad. The 8 soldiers that were hiding in the middle of the undead suddenly became the freshest meat available. "Run, quick!" yelled Chin Hu. There was more undead around them than previously, including a corpse general driven by hatred. They had no chance of fighting them whatsoever. The 8 soldiers quickly fled into the distance, casting magic continuously as they ran, summoning wild fiery fists and erupting tornadoes. Despite the bodies scattering in the air together with the splatter of blood and liquid, the zombies were still chasing them relentlessly. As the group was running, no one had time to look after Lu Hongjing, whose legs no longer had any flesh. Lu Hongjing was a water magician. He barely had a water barrier protecting him from the undead. However, there were simply too many crashing onto him, like rugby players stacking on top of one another as they fought for the ball. More zombies desperately tried to squeeze themselves between the gaps. Lu Hongjing's cries were completely blocked off. The group could only see a pile of zombies where he was. They saw parts of his flesh being thrown out from the pile, which were immediately taken away by the zombies nearby. Not a single drop of blood was left, as the zombies even fell to their knees to suck it all up. "Don't look back," Shi Xiaoju snapped at Zhang Xiaohou. The greatest taboo in the land of the undead was turning back. Even if their blood-related brothers had fallen, they were not allowed to turn back and rescue them. The most they could do was to simply come back and retrieve their corpses during the day, just so they would not turn into more undead. There's no such thing as rescuing in this land. The rescue team is basically the corpse retrieving team, emphasized Shi Xiaoju. Zhang Xiaohou bit his lips and continued to run. The zombies showed no sign of decreasing. There were always new ones blocking the path ahead. The undead seemed to have unlimited energy. Even those that were left a long ways behind were still chasing after them. I've got you. Come, stay with me." A terrifying voice was heard. Zhang Xiaohou turned around and realized that Captain Chin Hu had somehow been left behind. 2 zombies were grabbing onto his legs. A moment later, one of the hatchet corpse general's arms stabbed through his body. The arm slowly raised into the air. Impaled by the arm, Chin Hu was lifted into the air, hanging right in front of Jia Zai's face. Jia Shi burst into an eerie laughter, as if she were going to tear Chin Hu apart with her own mouth. Chin Hu turned around. The captain glanced at Zhang Xiaohou with his final breath. His mouth was filled with blood. Despite the great pain, he was still trying to tell Zhang Xiaohou something. "Don't turn back." Chin Hu used his remaining breath to tell Zhang Xiaohou. The following second, Chin Hu was torn apart by hatchet corpse general's 3 other limbs. Only the head was left in good condition, and set aside by the corpse general. Damn it! Damn it! Zhang Xiaohou lowered his head and kept on running. His face was hurting from the wind slapping his face. Zhang Xiaohou had no idea how fast he was going. Either way, the zombies were merely puppets blocking his path. The zombies could not stop him. Even the warrior-level corpse general had no chance to catch him. However, his only attack was Wind Disc. He was unable to save anyone, let alone blasting the zombies surrounding his comrades away. He initially thought he had grown stronger, that he was able to face tougher challenges and able to save the people he wanted to save. In the end, he was still the same, so tiny that running was the only thing he could do. It would be great if Mo Fan was here. He would simply use his strongest destructive spells to kill all the zombies. He would find a way to eliminate even the powerful corpse general. Two elements were nowhere enough to deal with the undead. Zhang Xiaohou had never had such a strong urge to become an advanced magician. After becoming an advanced magician, he would have access to 3 elements. He would at least have some spells he could use to fight the zombies. He would be able to cast the advanced spells, either the Eyes of the Rock Demon, Petrify, and the Wind Wings of the Wind Element would help a great deal. At least he would not be running like a coward. Zhang Xiaohou, don't go that way, yelled Shi Xiaoju. Zhang Xiaohou quickly collected his thoughts and realized that the ground in front of him was collapsing. First, the soil loosened up. Next, the ground began to sink. It felt like the ground was hollow underneath, and as the surface began to vibrate, the thin layers suddenly collapsed, revealing a pitch-black abyss right in front of him. There were several zombies on the ground, but as the abyss appeared, they all dropped into it. The angled moonlight was barely shining upon the walls of the deep abyss. Half of it was visible, while the other half was completely dark. The only sound was the cries of the zombies as they fell into darkness. Loud cries of the undead suddenly rose in the pit, as the ground began to tremble wildly. What's this? Zhang Xiaohou halted right in front of the abyss, sliding right to the edge of the pit as his speed was too high. He glanced down in astonishment, and saw the most terrifying sight he ever saw in his life. Chapter 530 Dark Abyss, 10,000 Corpses Pit, Part 2. The red eyes below were packed together densely. They were not a dazzling sight like the stars in the sky, but so crowded together that one could simply feel goosebumps across their body, and their heart being penetrated by the extremely greedy and savage gazes. The abyss was very dark, but Zhang Xiaohou could still see countless bodies and limbs squirming down in the pit. They were stacked together, layer after layer. The zombies were climbing on top of one another like moving mountains. The abyss was huge, yet he could not see even the slightest sign of the soil. All of it was filled with zombies, numbing his scalp. The few zombies that were initially on the surface before it collapsed had dropped into the pit like raindrops falling into the ocean, lost completely among the rest of the undead. Thousands, tens of thousands. With so many undead gathered in a single pit, it was like lifting up the lid of a burning pot, resembling the 18th floor of hell, where countless souls were being tortured. The dreadful scene was thrown open to the mundane world, displaying the torture and pain that the souls were suffering. Their tremendous hatred had materialized into a giant fountain of black vapor rising into the sky. Zhang Xiaohou was completely stunned in place. He was the closest to the abyss. Just a few more steps, he would have fallen into it. Now, he realized that he would prefer to be butchered by the hatchet corpse general rather than falling into this pit filled with zombies. It was no different than finding himself in hell. Zhang Xiaohou had nowhere to run with the hatchet corpse general chasing behind him. He would not make it in time running around the edge of the pit. Jia Zai's dark face was approaching him with her long tongue writhing the air, as if she was going to suck his blood dry. The hatchets swung wildly. Zhang Xiaohou clenched his teeth. With his back against the pit of zombies, he had no choice but to have a final showdown with the hatchet corpse general. However, as he had just prepared to fight to his death, the hatchet corpse general suddenly moved into a different direction and chased after Shi Xiaoju. An eerie laugh burst into his ears. Zhang Xiaohou had never experienced the feeling of being unable to move his feet due to overwhelming fear before. It was not just because the deadly hatchet corpse general had just spared his life, but the fact that a hell on earth was right behind him, the burning pot with countless zombies. He fell to his knees weakly. It took him some time to gather his strength again and rose to his feet. He could sense the tremendous aura of death right behind him, which would most likely drag any living thing nearby into it. Zhang Xiaohou did not want to die in this place. Without the hatchet corpse general chasing after him, Zhang Xiaohou was finally able to run back in the direction they had just come from. He could not see where the others were, or tell if they were dead or had actually managed to escape. The elites specifically picked to form the special team had collapsed at the first blow from the undead. They were merely prey in the end. The Magic Association. The Magic Association, in the clock tower. In a rather old-style office, a young woman on monitoring duty rushed toward the meeting room with an electronic screen on her hand. "Black! Black!" screamed the woman as she barged into the room. "Calm down. What is this about?" said the vice chairman of the ancient capital's Magic Association. "Black, there are black dots in this area. It's a dark abyss," said the woman as she pointed at the electronic screen. The screen was an electronic map, showing the vicinity of the ancient capital and the areas nearby. It was now midnight. The areas outside of the ancient capital were displaying as blood red on the map. The color was bright and astonishing, implying that the undead was a lot more restless than usual. On top of that, in the middle of the red areas, a black dot suddenly flickered. Black implied that it was a forbidden land for humans. A purple area was already considered a kingdom of demon beasts, where even the supreme magicians had little chance of surviving. Above that, a black area meant that any living thing had zero chance of surviving. Somehow, in the midst of the red, a black dot had appeared. It was a sign that the most terrifying thing in the land of the undead had appeared. Is there something wrong with the device? Why would there be black? It literally means the undead are stacking up into mountains. A young member of the Magic Association scoffed with a smile, before looking at the vice chairman Peng Yu. He quickly withdrew the smile on his face when he saw the stern look on the vice chairman's face. "You know nothing. This means that the dark abyss has appeared," the woman shot back, her voice rising as her control wavered. "Dark abyss? I've been here for quite some time, but I've never heard of that," replied the young man uncertainly. Vice Chairman Peng Yu exhaled deeply after some time and said, "Did you say that the area would only be black when the zombies are stacking up into mountains?" "Yeah, no matter how dense the zombies are, there's no way it would reach that level," said the young man. "The truth is, that's exactly what the dark abyss looks like. It's also known as the 10,000 Corpses Pit, or the Abyss of Hell. The device won't make a mistake. A dark abyss has indeed appeared to the west of Sunny Goat Village." "No, no way." The young man's face stiffened. "Tell the other factions that a dark abyss has appeared. Even this thing has shown itself in the land of the undead. If we can't find the reason behind it, this whole place is going to turn into hell," said Vice Chairman Peng Yu sternly. It was common for the undead to roam around the ancient capital. For thousands of years, humans here had learned how to coexist with the undead. However, since the extraordinary behavior of the drifting sand river, this land had gone out of control as well. More undead began to appear before nightfall, and high-level creatures were spotted in human territories. Even this pit, the closest thing to what hell looked like, had appeared. Wasn't all this enough to imply that something big was about to happen? The ancient capital had stood firmly for thousands of years despite the undead having their eyes on the city all along. The people here had learned how to defend themselves and fight against the undead in a never-ending war that had lasted for a few thousand years. Undead appearing in the daytime, the restless zombies, the appearance of the dark abyss. There had to be a reason behind it all. It was said that the river flowing from the mountain close to the Sunny Goat Village was the cleanest around dawn, perfect for brewing tea. Su Shaluo would rise from her bed when the sun had just risen to fetch water from the river. She would carry buckets of it back and pour them into the tanks at her house. Not only did her dad need the water to brew some nice tea, the water was crucial for bathing, too. On this day, she had gone to retrieve some water as usual. Even though she could hear the cries of zombies in the distance, she was not afraid. She scooped the water up and immediately discovered the water was red when she was about to pour it into the bucket. The water had the smell of blood. Su Xiaoluo frowned in annoyance, assuming that a stupid zombie had ended up in the upstream again. She glanced upward at the upstream and saw a man covered in blood lying on the ground. Half of his body was in the water. The blood continued to flow from his body. The man had died a terrible death. Su Xiaoluo was rather daring, having lived so close to the undead all her life. She walked up to the body and flipped it over. He's still breathing. Someone, help! Su Xiaoluo immediately called for the villagers when she discovered that the man was still barely breathing. Chapter 531 The Nomination Tournament. Lintong Headquarters. The military instructor Fei Zhao had assigned to coach the Special Forces soldiers sat down on the training ground, right under the flag. Where did the news come from? One of the villages outside of the safe zone. I think it's called Hua Village. The villagers said that they saw torn clothes on ripped-apart bodies when they walked past them somewhere nearby during the day. Judging from the clothes, we can basically say that the squad was completely wiped out, said the soldier who was delivering the information. Huh. Rescue team. That was more like a suicide team. Which asshole was it that sent my men out there? Cursed Fei Zhao as he quickly rose to his feet. Instructor, calm down. How can I? Those who died are my students. What do I tell Zhang Kong now? Yelled Fei Zhao furiously. He pointed at the buildings nearby and started cursing, from his superior to his subordinates, as if he had gone mad. The commanders in the meeting room did not dare to show themselves. Fei Zhao was firing the shots at pretty much everyone. Go, assemble a team. Bring them back, either alive or dead, said Fei Zhao to the soldier. Instructor, please calm down. They have most likely stumbled into a dark abyss. Otherwise, they would not be wiped out even if they merely bumped into a corpse general. What? What did you say? Fei Zhao was startled. The dark abyss. They were chased by something, and somehow ended up close to a dark abyss. Even those with wind elements did not survive. Dark abyss. Why is that thing appearing? Blurted out the instructor, his eyes wide and face blank. Dark abyss. It was exactly like hell. Even the strongest magician in the entire ancient capital had no chance of surviving after falling into one. Fei Zhao would not blink if he was told to enter the dragon's pond or the tiger's lair, but the dark abyss, it was not just a simple death, but falling straight into hell. TL note: Dragon's pond, tiger's lair equals an idiom used to describe dangerous places. Instructor, instead of making a scene here, you should notify the families of the dead. I've checked his background. Zhang Xiaohou came from Bo City. He grew up without his parents. It was his grandmother who raised him. Even though she survived the calamity of Bo City, she's approaching the end of her life. As for Zhang Xiaohou, you might want to tell him yourself. He also has a close friend, who should be the closest to him apart from his grandmother. Should I tell them the news? Asked the soldier. Zhang Kong has gone missing. How am I supposed to find him? As for his grandmother, don't tell her yet, she's already so old, Fei Zhao continued after a sigh. As for his friend, I'll try to find Zhang Kong first. If I can't find him, we'll let his friend know. Instructor, don't do anything stupid, that's the dark abyss. God knows how many lives would be needed to fill it up. I know that. Piss off from my sight, every time I see you, there's always bad news. The Magic City. Cold wind blew overhead. The city was filled with coughs everywhere, most likely due to the new flu that was spreading around. Why don't you close the window when you go to bed? Asked I Tutu as she glanced into Mo Fan's room. I'm a fire magician, and I also have a little mobile furnace lying beside me. I prefer the fresh air when the window's open. Mo Fan sat in front of the computer and scrolled across the web pages, looking for interesting news related to the ancient capital. The world was full of disastrous events. In his original world, there were natural disasters, but in this world, the disasters were usually invasions of demon beasts. I Tutu proceeded to mock Mo Fan when she saw the guy suddenly became interested in affairs in the country. Mo Fan turned off the computer and looked back at I-Tutu. His gaze blithely swept past her busty chest before he replied sternly, "Did you just say that everyone ranked in the top 20 in every school has a chance to enter the nomination preliminaries for the World College Tournament?" "Yeah, didn't you notice that Sister Mew has been cultivating in seclusion for a long time already?" said I-Tutu. "She did improve very quickly," Mo Fan nodded. Mo Fan was fairly impressed by Mew Nujiao's determination. He did not see her much for the past few months, and every time they met, the girl always asked for a duel. It was most likely because the formidable faction supporting Mew Nujiao had decided to focus on helping her enter the World College Tournament. Not only did she have 2 high-quality soul seeds, all the equipment she was wearing was luxurious, too. I-Tutu had also told him that Mew Nujiao still had a trump card up in her sleeves. She was preparing to use it as a surprise move during the nomination preliminaries. Mo Fan was looking forward to seeing it. Thinking about it, Mew Nujiao's Mew clan was one of the 4 great clans in Magic City. It went without saying that they would want to compete for the spot. Similarly, the extremely wealthy Zhao clan was in a similar situation, too. Even the playboy Zhao Manyan had turned into a different person, always busy with some secret training. Zhao Manyan was most likely not going to compete for the spot offered by the Institute. However, even if he were trying to earn a spot somewhere else, he still had to work extremely hard. Regardless of having a formidable faction supporting them, the number of competitors was like a vast ocean. Without a certain level of capability, they had no chance of standing out among the candidates. Basically, everyone who was planning to compete for the chance of being nominated for the World College Tournament had turned into a cultivation lunatic. As for I-Tutu, this young mistress from a wealthy family had a huge bust, but little to no goals. She continued to enjoy life, but since her close friend had devoted herself on the path of cultivation, she was bored to death. Mo Fan was a seated candidate, thus he could skip the nomination preliminaries if he wanted to. The others had all gone to cultivate, only Mo Fan was still slacking around, which was why I-Tutu had been staying with Mo Fan lately, hoping that he would find something fun for her to do. Speaking of which, I suggest you take part in the nomination preliminaries, too. I-Tutu was not planning to take part in them, but she was fairly familiar with the event. "Why is that?" asked Mo Fan. "You currently have 3 votes, which is basically no different than a provisional candidate, yet you still need to get a 4th vote somehow. If you manage to get the nomination, you basically earn yourself another vote. First, no one will be able to stop you from securing a spot, and second, you can also shut the mouths of those who are doubting you," I-Tutu declared. Mo Fan nodded. He agreed with her reasoning. Not everyone was aware of how he got the 3 votes in the first place, thus they would assume that he was merely being favored by someone. As a result, they would not be convinced of his qualifications. Meanwhile, Mo Fan had always liked fighting. The nomination preliminaries would definitely involve the strongest students in the entire institute. If he did not take hold of the opportunity and trample some of those disrespectful idiots, wouldn't he simply let the Black Snake armor, which he still hadn't used, and the Flame Belle, who had finally reached her youth stage, down? As the saying went, a dragon gave birth to dragons, a phoenix gave birth to phoenixes, and the sons of mice were experts at digging holes. Even though Mo Fan did not give birth to the Flame Belle, out of all his resources, she was somehow better at stirring up trouble than her father. The little Flame Belle was a huge fan of getting into fights. Chapter 532 Impersonating. The Nomination Preliminaries. Pearl Institute had 10 nominations in total. Those who were nominated still needed to go through another 2 rounds of competition before deciding the candidates. The rules of the nomination preliminaries were fairly simple. It would simply gather those in the top 20 in every element school to duel with one another. Most interestingly, the duel was not only 1 versus 1, but 4 versus 4, with randomly assigned teams. Each student who was participating in the nomination preliminaries would team up with 3 other participants temporarily and fight against 3 other teams. Although the outcome of the battle would affect their chance of being selected, losing the battle did not mean all hope was lost. The overall rankings inside the institute was not decided through battles between the different elements, since one element would be more effective against some elements, and ineffective or neutral against the others. Everyone in the institute was an intermediate magician, so they would only have 2 elements at most. Those with only defensive or healing elements would never be able to climb the rankings, yet those magicians were always the most important persons in a team. As a result, the institute had made the nomination preliminaries a team battle instead. Every duel would have 3 referees, and each of them had 8 points to spare. Regardless of the outcome of the battle, those who performed better would be given more points. The participants with the highest points would be nominated, and the higher-ups would decide the final 10 nominations. Nominations simply meant the candidate had earned a vote. Only those with 4 votes were able to represent the country in the World College Tournament. As for the source of the other 3 votes, it was a lot more complicated. They could come through the support from renowned families, magic associations, or the military. It basically depended on the student's capability and reputation. Mo Fan already had 3 votes, yet those were more like tokens of appreciation, and he was quite lucky to get them, too. Therefore, it was important for him to earn the nomination, too. He was extremely excited when he learned about the structure of the tournament. A one-on-one battle was fun, but it basically came down to who had the higher cultivation and equipment most of the time. A group battle was more reliant on the skills of the participants, how to utilize their magic perfectly, which could even grant them a chance to turn the tables. Just like how he had worked together with Zhang Xiaohou and Zhao Manyan at the Drifting Sand River, this felt extremely good. The World College Tournament was obviously based on teamwork, too, hence the preliminaries would also be testing the participants' abilities when working in a team. I-Tutu had become Mo Fan's little tail. The girl was a fun seeker, and assumed that she would always find something interesting when following Mo Fan around, hence she energetically signed up for the nomination preliminaries on Mo Fan's behalf and helped him take the draw, too. Mo Fan spent most of his time cultivating. His ears were shut off from matters outside of the window, yet he would still hear about all sorts of nonsense from I-Tutu's mouth that never stopped talking, including how the granddaughter of the school's guard had fallen in love with some renowned family's young master. I-Tutu was dying from boredom, so she was fairly passionate about signing Mo Fan up for the nomination preliminaries. After finishing the draw, she quickly visited the institute's forum. Once the draw was done, most participants would reveal their numbers on the forum, and would organize a meetup fairly quickly just to learn what elements each teammate had and practice together if needed. I-Tutu had made herself Mo Fan's secretary. When she saw someone assembling those with the same number, she quickly put on some makeup and went to meet the rest of the team. Mo Fan's teammates had gathered at the field. When I-Tutu arrived in her slightly exposed outfit, the other 3 had long been waiting for her. "Is your team number 11? Said a male student among the 3. "Ah, I know you. You're the handsome leader of the Lightning School, Gugn." I-Tutu's eyes flickered when she took a closer look at the student. The guy called Gugn wore a stiff expression as he glanced at I-Tutu. Beautiful women, busty women, Gugn had seen lots of them. He had no interest in women for the time being. Oh, it's only because his mind was occupied with thoughts of securing the nomination. Even when a woman was lying naked in his bed, he had promised himself that he would focus on cultivating instead. Gugn did not have a good first impression of I-Tutu, as he was worried that she was a vase. It was not ideal to lose their first duel. Even though the outcome did not matter, only by winning would he be able to showcase his exceptionalness. TL note: a vase here means someone who's completely useless, and can only be used as decoration. "Since everyone's here, let's first talk about the elements we have," said Gugn to the others like a captain. I-Tutu was only here on behalf of Mo Fan, who had gone to the 3-step tower to cultivate. She definitely needed to explain that to the team. Gugn immediately frowned and said, "Are you actually one of Team 11? Don't waste our time here, we still need to practice." Yeah, I am," said I-Tutu in a panic. I-Tutu had long heard Gu-Jian's famous name. The reason was that her aunt had asked her to meet the son from Gu family during the Lunar New Year. The meeting was basically a blind date. It was very common between renowned families, since I-Tutu was already at an age suitable for marriage. She was not passionate with her cultivation, and was merely wasting her time fooling around. Her family had decided to let her marry someone instead, so she could have a change of heart. Unfortunately, this Gu-Jian was the one that her family was fond of. I-Tutu had never thought Mo Fan would be grouped with the man who might be her fiancé in the near future. The man was extremely handsome and talented, one of the top students in the Lightning School. He did meet most of I-Tutu's requirements. On second thought, I-Tutu decided not to tell them she was only here on behalf of someone yet. She wanted to observe Gu-Jian more with the opportunity given to her. "So what elements do you have?" asked Gu-Jian. "My primary element is plant, and my secondary element is light," answered I-Tutu. "Oh, not bad. Since our team doesn't need more offensive magic," Gu-Jian's expression improved slightly. "Alright, let's start the training. It's better to be prepared." "Good. Let's work together as a team," I-Tutu said with a blossoming smile. Mo Fan, who was currently cultivating in the 3-step tower, never thought I-Tutu would go so far. Even after Mo Fan left the 3-step tower, I-Tutu still did not tell Mo Fan about the tournament. Little did he know, I-Tutu had already impersonated him just so she could spend some time with the man she was interested in. Or more precisely, Mo Fan should have expected things to go wrong when he asked I-Tutu, whose brain was full of papaya, to help him. Not only was I-Tutu's brain inversely proportional to the size of her breast, there was nothing she would not do. "Swift Star Wolf, why are you running away? Where's your savagery as a wolf?" "Oh woo." Swift Star Wolf ran to the corner of the training ground, fighting a strong urge to burst into tears. It was the only place not covered in flames. The entire place was set aflame. A little girl with an appearance like a porcelain doll floated above the fierce flames, her petite figure totally made of fire. She was laughing pleasantly, yet the sound of it was like a signal of destruction for the Swift Star Wolf. "Swift Star Wolf, fight like a man, go. Ah, little flame bell, go burn your Uncle Wolf. Why are you burning your father instead?" Stop, little flame bell, it's your fight, not mine. Stop possessing my body." "Holy shit, Swift Star Wolf, come back here. I'm not going to fight you when she possesses me. Why are you running?" "Dimensional summoning, humph. Where do you think you're running to?